Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are broadcasting live from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues. A note, because today is June 6th, a moment of remembrance to the heroes that lost their lives on D-Day. You have our eternal thanks for your sacrifice. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday at around 5 p.m. Pacific time. The show also appears, at least for the moment, on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is broadcast Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can tune in, find it at their website, KELY1230.com. It's about 18 stations throughout Nevada. Currently, none of those are in Clark County, but we're working on it. You have questions or comments, you can send an email to me at bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, we will respond by email, text, or telephone. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, and we always pick out a few that are of interest to people who own guns. Some are good shootings, some are bad shootings. Most of them are questionable to some degree. But we want you to be able to look at them as an education to what you could do versus what the individuals involved did in that incident. And we have an attorney here to comment on that too, Don Green, my friend here. As I say, generally, the disclaimer here is generally shootings are adjudicated under local law. What we may give you as a reasonable advice in California or Nevada may not apply in Pennsylvania or Florida or Missouri. So if you're involved in a case, you want to have a local counsel that does criminal defense work in firearms, and we can direct you to that person if you would like. Get a hold of me or get a hold of my guest, and we can put you on to somebody that knows what they're doing. My guest today is California and Nevada firearms attorney, Donald J. Green. Don, welcome back.
Well, thanks again, Bob. It's always a pleasure to be here. And once again, for your viewers and listeners, my name is Don Green. And you can reach me directly on my cellular at area code 702-409-8239. Or you can go on your browser, Google, or whatever, and put in Donald J. Green, Gun Show Lawyer, or Donald J. Green, a lawyer in Las Vegas. And it'll give you the links to the website, which was produced here at Rigel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm very thankful for them. But the primary emphasis of my practice, Bob, for your listeners, is firearms litigation, legislation, which we'll talk about in a little while, and representing federal firearms licensees, private individuals, estates, which are selling firearms, which all last week were directly affected by some of the new laws, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. And we spent an inordinate amount of time on those so that we could get as best a position as we could and to learn the legislative history so that if there comes a court case, we can use that legislative history to our advantage. Thank you.
This first story comes from News4Jax. It's in Jacksonville, Florida, hence the name. This was reported on the 6th of this month. Actually, we're on the 5th of this month, and we are broadcasting this the next day. So there are some facts in these cases we take right away that we don't know yet. A lot of details missing. But anyway, the story goes, a woman shot and killed a man who broke into her Ortega Farms home on the west side, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office reported. Just after midnight, police say they received multiple 911 calls about gunfire on Katoma near Tumakwa Road. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, including one from a woman who said she shot an intruder. She told arriving officers that the man was still inside her apartment. Homicide detectives said the officers found an unidentified man lying on the floor in the master bedroom with multiple gunshot wounds. Fire rescue personnel said the man was pronounced dead at the scene. Neighbors told News 4 Jax that the woman who lives in the apartment knew the intruder and that he is the father of her 2 children. News Jax 4 also learned that she had a temporary restraining order against him. The local crime and safety expert they use at this station, a guy named Ken Jefferson, said if someone forcibly enters your home, you have a right to protect yourself. He said a person after midnight or in the wee hours of the morning is unlawfully entering this house. The persons inside don't know who it is, don't know what's going on other than the fact that there's an intruder coming through, and they have a right to protect themselves even if it means using deadly force. I'm not sure she didn't know who this was, but in any case, a resident of the area told News Jax 4 that what was going on is shocking since this is a quiet neighborhood. It's amazing the number of stories we do where people say that nothing ever happens here. That's true everywhere, and they happen everywhere. Anyway, the commentary here is that the order of protection will loom huge in this particular incident. Quite often, after the relationship fails, one side or the other actually doesn't ask for a protective order because they think things will get better. They don't want to make it worse by talking to the police and so forth and so on. Always inform the police if there's something going on that you think may be life-threatening, even if it's just simply going down and talking to a detective, saying, I don't want to make a formal complaint. This is what happens, and if I show up dead, you want to look for Fred because he's been threatening me. Somebody needs to know it's going on in case something like this happens. Mr. Green.
Bob, again, we're not here to discuss what happened in Florida, but applying this specifically to California law, the woman might have a problem. And the reason why is if I was representing the family of this man who was shot, or if I was a district attorney, I would subpoena the woman's cellular records to find out if she was calling the intruder shortly before midnight on the day in question. Because if she was violating the restraining order, and although we do not have the exact text messages of what it said, we can surmise from a series of text messages and maybe a brief response from the now deceased intruder that perhaps she was asking him to come over, and that this is just the best excuse in the world to get rid of the guy if there's some protracted child custody matters going on. And these things do happen. Now notice, according to the reports, I shot an intruder, not I shot my soon-to-be ex-husband or my ex-boyfriend. Next, the detectives, when they go in, of course, they see what is described as an unidentified man. Well, the woman who's had 2 children with this man can probably certainly identify him, even if he's dead. There's a problem there. And then now we have the neighbors who fill in the blanks and show, well, she knew the guy. So, and then the thing that may save her in all this was the temporary protective order. But as Bob says, the temporary protective order is only as good as the paper it's written on and the order of the judge. So she's going to have to let the police know, let her friends know, hey, I've got a TPO in case you see this guy around my house. But again, I'm going to double check if I'm the prosecutor or if I'm the attorney for the estate, for the intruder. I'm going to look at those cellular records to see, or even the, what do you call it, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, to double check to see if she's been communicating with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we always tell clients, never lie to the investigators, never. That's going to be a huge issue. Why didn't you tell the police you knew who this guy was? Give me a break. An unidentified man, an intruder, and you don't mention, oh, that's, she's put herself in a hole. Don't lie. It never helps. Shut up ask for a lawyer, don't lie. This next story comes from KERO TV 23. It's an ABC affiliate in Bakersfield, California, just to our left over here from the direction we're facing. This took place on the 5th of June, yesterday. Very sketchy, but very current. In Northeast Bakersfield, a Kern County Sheriff's Office said deputies were sent to the 3100 block of Montello Street after getting a report of a burglary in progress. Starts as the same story. When they arrived, they learned that a man had a hammer and was attempting to break into the home. The woman who lived in the residence armed herself with a handgun and fired one round at the suspect. The 33-year-old male suspect was taken to a local hospital for treatment of minor to moderate injuries. He was subsequently arrested on suspicion of robbery, willful cruelty to a child, assault with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment, carrying a concealed weapon, and damaging or destroying a communication device. Obviously, there's more to this story than was in the original report, obviously. The woman, along with her children who were in the home during the attempted break-in, were not injured. The first thing I would look at here is just imagine what would have happened had this lady not had a firearm in her home to protect herself. You have to have the firearm, the skill to use it, and the will to use it. We can teach the first couple of those in classes. The will to use it is a personal thing. It's been my experience that people who even say, I never want to shoot anybody no matter what, when their life is on the line, they will use it. You have a survival instinct buried under all of that. Mr. Green.
Yes. Bob, again, we have to look at a few points in this case which are very critical to whether or not the woman's going to be charged, whether this can be ruled as a good shooting. First of all, the woman, again, lived in the residence, armed herself with a handgun, and fired one round at the suspect. Unsure if there would have been the completed act of the attempt break-in to the house, you should not shoot someone who's not in your house yet unless the threat is of great bodily injury and death in your presence. Not when somebody says that I've got a club and he's standing on the other side of a door which is closed. So the thing is that where was he shot and under what circumstances at the timing of the shooting relative to this alleged break-in. Now we don't see anything in here about her knowing this particular suspect. Is that correct? There's nothing here on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now what we have here is we not only have robbery, we have willful cruelty to the child. Where did that come from? Was the woman's child next to her? Is there something peculiar under? I know there's plenty of laws in California. So the children must have been present when all of this was done, and you have to willfully know that the children are present, or that there is some particular factors which you should know that the children are present. For example, they're all in the back of the car seat. You can hear them screaming, although you might not see the children. So he had a laundry list of charges which the district attorney had lodged against him. Now, if she knows this man, if she shot through the door, then she's got discharge of a firearm from an occupied structure, felony. Discharge of a firearm in a residential area, felony. Discharge of a firearm into an area in which people could be injured, felony. And possession of the firearm during the commission of another crime, which we don't know yet whether she was yelling or threatening him. We just don't know that. This is a case that we need to follow up, because your listeners have got to, and your viewers have got to understand what's going to happen when someone starts pounding on your door, again, in the middle of the night. We have one of these other middle of the night kind of cases. So that's what we need to look at.
Yep. A note on the issue. There was a little companion piece in here. For those of you who are not familiar with Bakersfield, California, it's basically overrun with all sorts of crime and gangs and you name it. that the police can't keep up with. And subsequent to this article appearing, the county sheriff, his name is Donnie Youngblood, had a press conference to say that they were shutting down their gang unit. The decision is due to financial constraints. It's unavoidable. That's just what it is, he said. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. He will assign deputies to deal with gang issues when needed. I didn't make notes in the outline, but the gang unit was 3 guys, and they're continuing. 2 are going to work for the FBI, attached to the FBI, being paid by the FBI and their gang task force, and 1 to go to work for the ATF. So their knowledge of the gangs will not be lost, but there'll only be federal prosecutions. I'm sure they'll let Bakersfield know if something is going on they should know about, but this is ridiculous across the country. California's got lots of problems, I know, and they're short of budget for everything and this and that and the other thing. But to see a high crime area like this disband their gang unit is just ridiculous.
I agree. And California, within recent past, has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to fund or to support abortion clinics, yet they're not giving a dime to Kern County to try to curb some of this gang violence and to promote law enforcement. So where are the priorities in California? It's a nightmare, and it's out of control. It's totally out of control.
We've got one additional story. This comes from Arizona Central, reported on the 4th of this month, 2 days ago, in Glendale, Arizona. A resident shot a man he claimed was trying to kick down his door around 2:14 a.m. I always love police reports. That's approximately 2:14 a.m. Sergeant John Roth said Glendale officers were dispatched to an area near 51st and Peoria Avenue after a caller reported he'd shot through the door, not knowing if he hit anyone. Got that part? Approximately a minute later, another call was made from a person reporting they were shot at the same location. Think the police can put those 2 things together? The man who was shot was taken to the hospital with injuries that were non-life-threatening, fortunately for all involved. The resident who'd fired the weapon was detained by officers until detectives could determine exactly what happened. It was later learned the residents knew the visitor at the home. The incident is under investigation. Information about possible arrests are not known at this time. This is a pretty foolish case, but I wanted to bring it up just because of the shooting through the door routine. In this case was incredibly stupid. It's virtually always incredibly stupid. Again, this was a single source story. I doubt we're going to find any follow-up because nobody died. So a shot through the door at 2 in the morning with no visible target and apparently no verbal warnings given, although if they knew each other, maybe there were. It's reported the players knew each other, so there's a lot more to this story, obviously. Very fortunately, the would-be intruder will recover, so we don't end up with somebody charged with murder. I just couldn't pass up a shoot through the door case, Don.
That's good, because at almost all the gun shows, we have citizens who ask me, what happens if he's pounding at the door? Can I shoot through the door? Answer, no. Because the door is a barrier which deflects the legal defense of I was under the stress of great bodily injury in my presence or death. You got that door. Again, once you shoot through the door, it becomes a felony. Suppose you hit a child. Suppose the round went through the thin door at an apartment and hits the kid downstairs or the kid in the next apartment complex while the kid is at the pool. Well, you might not go to jail for the attempted murder of the intruder, but you may go to jail for manslaughter with use of a deadly weapon, for using the weapon in a lawful manner, but it ends up being illegal by the fact that you shot this little girl down on the other side of the fence, and that was the girl who was in the pool area, which is not even used by your particular apartment complex. So. Again, don't shoot through the door. Second, And he even said, well, I don't know if anything happened. Then, when we have a call to the police and whatever, if the police later learn that the residents know each other. Bob just pointed out in the last show that tell the police, I know the guy, and like the lady that shot the intruder, all of a sudden becomes the father of her 2 children. She would have known the guy. And you definitely would know if this guy was living in that you knew him as a particular, either as a friendship, a resident, roommate, whatever. Next, in bold letters, surrounded by orange day glow tape, at the gun shows, we post a little notice that says that 99% chance that you are going to be detained in a shooting. It doesn't matter who is at fault or what your defense is. You're probably going to be detained. So when it says that the good guy who shot this particular weapon was detained, is a very good point for your listeners and your viewers to understand. So you got to be careful when that weapon comes out. And also yell to somebody. Could the resident have yelled, "Get away from my door"? Well, yes, that would have been a partial defense, but still, the door is a barrier. Bottom line, best advice, don't shoot through the door.
But if you shoot through the door and now there's a hole in it, you could look through the hole and see who's outside. You didn't think of that. There's always a way around this.
Just make sure that you have quarters to call me collect from the jail, Bob. We will take your call.
We have, pardon that last joke, I couldn't resist. We have some new Nevada gun laws about to hit us. We've had some legislation pass, and it's still being evaluated by the Legislative Council Bureau of the Attorneys for the state to see if it's legal and doesn't violate other laws. But it appears we are about to have universal background checks fall upon us and a red flag law allowing pretty much anybody, as I read them, to take guns away from people they deem are a danger to themselves or others. Don's been working on this for quite a while, so you have the floor.
Thank you. Bob, the background check law is the law of the state of Nevada, effective January 1st, 2020, where sales between private individuals have to be facilitated through a licensed firearms dealer, which means that the purchaser of the firearm will have to undergo a background check. That is the law, subject to any court challenges. In February 2019, I testified before a joint Nevada Senate Judiciary Committee and the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and I said that basically my position is neutral on the issue of the background check laws. It's neutral for the following reasons. We want to have 3 things in that law. Number 1, that the law state in the beginning section of this statute that we in Nevada have the right to bear arms. And that is actually in the law itself right now, as passed. It's like paragraph 3, subsection 6, quote, "We have the right to bear arms in Nevada, but bearing those firearms come with certain responsibilities, and that is to keep the firearms out of the hands of felons and domestic abusers and people with mental issues who otherwise shouldn't have the firearms." Something like that, end quote. The second thing we wanted was we wanted to make sure that there was no taxation, because the way that Bob and I have been talking about the background check law years ago was that we developed a point that this violated Nevada's taxation statute, which requires a dealer in goods, in his ordinary course of goods, he must charge a sales tax if he facilitates a sale. We filed that lawsuit in December 2016, and in 2017, we entered into an agreement with the state of Nevada, which the state of Nevada says, well, we really don't want to answer your court papers because you're right, Donald. There is a taxable event, but we're going to give you a tax ruling. And there's a tax ruling from the Nevada Department of Taxation which says that if the law, the background check law, ever becomes legal, there will be no tax between the buyer and the seller. The third aspect of this is that the background check remained free. We've had a background check in Nevada for over 25 years. Many people never used it. I've used it on several occasions. It looks like the Form 4473, the form used by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And when you fill out the form, you must fill it out in blue ink. You send it to you have it notarized, buyer and seller, type of weapon. You send it to the Nevada Department of Public Safety, which then runs a background check on the buyer. It takes about 10, 15 days. You get a letter back with 3 answers. Proceed, means you can make the sale. Deny, can't do it, or there's a delay of some type because of something happened in the buyer's past. So, but that's all going to be instantaneous starting in January of 2020. The second aspect is the storage. It will now become a very serious crime if you fail to store your weapons properly. We have a number of cases in Las Vegas and Clark County. It's been almost every week that there is a firearm brought to a middle school or a high school. We used to have junior highs, and now it's middle school and high school. But it'll be a crime, and I guarantee you there are people in this town that have got firearms at the top of loaded firearms at the top of the closet, and they don't think the kids are going to get the firearms, but they do, and the kids end up taking them to school. Well, we've always had this kind of a law in the books. This law, which was proposed by a very fine criminal defense attorney, is about storage. And I think that it's one of those ones where they're trying to chip away at all the gun rights and gun ownership. So finally in Nevada, we won't have any type of gun ownership, and it'll be like California. The third and most important point is the red flag law. This is the law where your relatives, your wife, your soon-to-be ex-wife, whoever's living in your house as children, a police officer or somebody thinks that you're a danger to society, and they come in and get your firearms. Now, you have nothing. You can't challenge this. Once they get the request and the judge signs the order, you cannot challenge them physically taking the weapons. You can't say, no, I'm not going to let you have them because you'll be in jail. So the weapons have got to be taken out of the house. And there's room for abuse. There's so much room for abuse between the spouse or the soon-to-be ex-spouse and the ex-husband or soon-to-be ex-husband. Then, as I see it, there's going to be a serious jurisdictional issue. Because in Nevada, in our Constitution, the judicial officers who can issue orders concerning property are elected officers, or like a small claims judge where there's specific properties, but a small claims judge can only order a money judgment. A small claims judge in Nevada cannot, it's not like Judge Judy. She can't order you to return the couch, okay? Can't do it in Nevada. Now, what's going to happen is that I believe that under our Constitution in Nevada and under our Nevada revised statutes, only elected judges can order the taking of the property, not a judge who's going to be appointed. And then we have that issue, from what pool of lawyers or whatever are we going to have these so-called, these temporary gun restraining order courts? Again, I'm trying to be not trying to be over alarmist, but in the 1930s, Adolf Hitler says that if you want to take over a country, first you disarm the citizenry. Is this part of it? Answer, yes. Is there room for abuse? Yes. Will there be abuses? Yes. How do you deal with the abuse? Because what is the standard? Because I must prove that I'm no longer a danger to society, and that is almost an impossible standard. I just had a case I turned down the other day. Basically, the guy had been placed into an involuntary commitment, and with that involuntary commitment, you have to have the doctors say, I, Dr. X, committed malpractice because I falsely and intentionally and willfully misdiagnosed Mr. X, so that the order of commitment is now should be dissolved. And that's an almost impossible standard. Yep. And that's how I see what's going to happen in this case.
We are going to have a lot more on that. As time goes on, we have a gun show coming up also this weekend. Don and I will be there at the convention center.
Yes, the South
Yeah,
Hall of the Convention
South Hall
Center.
Convention Center. It's a big show.
Yes.
Don and I will both be there. If you'd like to stop by, we'll have a table there and can answer directly questions that are the stuff you don't want to
Yes.
ask in public. You can ask Don in private.
Yes.
And I'll argue with him about it if I feel like it. We come across on different sides on occasion. Anyway, I thank you for all watching Fired Up. We will be back next week with another show. Thanks for watching Fired Up.
Thank you, Bob.